Hello friends, welcome to my channel Christian Content Videos. My name is Prasanna Jangam, I'm a Christian apologist. Today I'm going to be talking about the topic what is content preaching from the series The Content Series. So what is content preaching? Content preaching in Christian preachings means the sermon has or the preaching has the explanation of the meaning of the subject at hand or topic, layering it line after line with the sentences of explanation only. The farther the sermon goes, the thicker it should get. It should only be the continuation of the same topic. Every sentence spoken should be the continuation of the previous sentence without deviating, without escaping, without using examples. It should be only content, only explanation as far and as thick as one is capable. Though the experiences or the examples convey the same message or build upon the same topic, or it adds to the topic, testimonies or stories are just too many words to say one single statement, and that too with the thickness of the previous statements or the first few statements or the first few lines, which anyone can know if he or she reads the Bible himself or the theological materials himself or herself. The more the experience or the testimony or the story time increases, it is only diluting the time and the thickness of the content. It even also dilutes what's spoken earlier. Anyways, that story can be condensed, can be reduced to very few sentences. Instead, it is better when one is using words with very few sentences to explain instead of a story or a testimony. For example, if we have to break down the Psalm 23, it goes like this. God is my shepherd, I shall not lack. God is my shepherd, which means He is our guider, He is our caretaker, owner, leader. So this is how a contented preacher would be attempting to break down this psalm. For example, God is our shepherd. I am in God's. For example, I am in God's shepherding. He or she will be addressing points like how do we get there? What does shepherding do to us? From the sentence, from the passage, we see the tone of the author is very desirous, very positive of his description of the relationship that he has with his God. Which shows us that he is stating his personal choice for his life. These are 4 or 5 lines of explanation that I've been able to create on the spot. And obviously they are very surface level lines, they are not thick, but that's how one would begin instead of going into a story or explaining his or her experiences, taking the listeners through a topic or a story and then concluding with one sentence which is not thicker at all. But even though the lines that I've said, for example, are not as thick, but at the same time they can be used as the introductory or the first starting level lines, and those lines should be filled with more furthering and thickening content with as much heaviness as possible. Furthering and thickening as it furthers, layer upon layer, thicker and thicker. For one to be a contented preacher, or preacher of content, or preacher of explanation, or preacher who has weight, not just a persona built upon feelings but on solid theology and explanation capabilities, one has to have at least 40 to 80 sentences of furthering content in a sermon, using the sentences in the sermon, and each sentence building upon the previous one, each sentence getting thicker as it goes further. If you can find a preacher like that, that is a contented preacher. I tell this mainly to aspiring preachers, aspiring ministers, wannabe preachers. And if one is not a contented preacher, obviously he is a contentless preacher or a writer. So, because we have this advantage of internet and being able to access information as much as we can anywhere that we want to, and anything that we want to almost. So we do not have this excuse that we were not able to fetch information that we were looking to, like the preachers before us, like preachers that have prepared for ministry like 10 years ago, 15 years ago, who are seniors in the ministry today. So they had not much access to information, but the people who are preparing now today, preparing over Wi-Fi, over internet, over using devices, using mobiles, even using PCs, using laptops, and those people do not have excuses that they are contentless. So obviously, because the first 5 to 10 sentences of content, at least 5 sentences of the content the preacher preaches, people are aware of it because They get to watch the shared videos and they get to watch different kind of preachers on different kind of topics. They can hear, they're able to listen to different preachers preaching on the same topic. So things have changed today, that's what I'm trying to say. So if one wants to come into the ministry, he should be able to stand on the subject only and should be able to speak for at least 40 sentences of content, which is furthering explanation, which is 40 minimum sentences of furthering explanations, getting thicker and thicker every sentence, being thicker than the previous sentence. Then one can get into ministry and be a minister of competence and self-respect. In preachings, because a preacher is trying to explain things, obviously he'll be progressively adding weights to his sentences, or as he goes along, he gets heavier, he or she gets heavier in his sentences or her sentences. So the content actually starts past 10 sentences of explanation, because people can fetch at least 5 to 10 sentences which are used in the opening of the sermon or which are used in the sermon. Those first 10 sentences can be fetched by anyone from anywhere. If someone's a contented preacher who's got the ability to frame up 40 sentences of explanation, even for that person, the first 10 sentences cannot be considered as his contented preaching content. For example, if someone has surface level or common level sentences and he or she has used a few stories or few testimonies and finished his sermon, obviously that sermon is not a contented sermon and that's not contented preaching. So content preaching is the explanation of the meaning of the Word of God and speaking about the meaning of the Word of God only, with a few sentences that can be used to break down, to simplify the sentences of explanation, with very few stories and testimonies, as few as possible. For example, if a preacher is preaching for 50 minutes, he or she should at least be able to preach content only or the sentences of explanation only, and the sentences that are used are definitely thicker than the previous sentences and building on the previous sentences for at least 15 minutes. That's a contented preacher and that is a contented preaching. If not, you're not listening to or you're not looking at a preacher that is contented or who's able to preach, who's able to explain the meaning of the Word of God. So friends, this is what contented preaching is. I hope you have learned something new today. Please like and share the video. If you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel. Or if you're new here, please make sure you subscribe to this channel and click on the bell icon to get notified whenever I post something. Thank you for watching this video. God bless us all.